Okay, Nate, today, could you please tell me your thoughts on the Galactic Federation?
Yeah, right. Well, a few years ago, I came up with this idea of the Galactic Federation. I found it on the internet and I had to think about it, and I thought it made sense if a few things are true. So, the thing is, first of all, the Galactic Federation is the idea that there are a collection of interstellar species in the galaxy and that they have a government and policy and laws between each other. Now, first thing about that is it may not be possible at all for any species to be interstellar, and I've discussed this in previous videos. So there are some things you have to consider. Is interstellar travel possible at all? It just may be too difficult for any species to ever achieve long distance interstellar travel because the distances are too great and because travel through space is too risky and dangerous. But for the benefit of the Galactic Federation hypothesis, we're going to assume that it is possible for a species to achieve interstellar travel, right? So, some people believe in a process of evolution of technology and society and civilization. Other people don't. But if you believe in a process of evolution of society and civilization, you would think that species go from being simple animals and simple life forms, and they evolve right through to being complex life forms with big brains that can conceive of ideas with independent thought and sentience. And then you argue that from that point they start to develop technology and civilization is born, and that process should in theory continue until they reach out and start visiting other star systems and going out into the broader universe. Now, we haven't reached that point yet. Now, the universe is very old and the galaxy is very old, so it's a question of, has any species out there ever reached that point in their civilization where they have progressed out to other star systems, right? Or have they all just destroyed themselves or gone extinct for various reasons, right? So if we assume, with the age of the galaxy and the universe, if we assume that throughout all that time that there have been species that have reached that interstellar level, then we ask the question, are they still around or are they extinct? And I don't assume necessarily that if there were interstellar species that they would reach out to less developed species and contact them. They may wish to remain private. They may not wish to engage with lesser developed species. In Star Trek, the Federation has a rule that they don't interact with species that are sort of like, still grounded on their one planet and haven't progressed out into the stars. That's the rule in Star Trek. They don't interact. It's non-interventionist policy, right? So, the question again is, do interstellar species exist? Are they out there? Are they that advanced that they can travel between star systems? If they are, and there are more than one of them, there could potentially be within the galaxy numerous species who have reached this level of development that they can travel out to other star systems. And they may come across each other and they may bump into each other in their travels. And then what happens when two species meet is negotiations begin. And the reason negotiations begin is because there's relationships that have to be formed. So this is the natural policy of why government emerges. This is the natural process of why government emerges. See, government emerges because groups of individuals need to coordinate their interactions with each other. So government and structure and organization emerges naturally in civilizations. So if two species bump into each other in the stars and learn about each other, they will inevitably engage in some sort of rule making and policy making with each other about the rules of their interactions. So with this, the Galactic Federation is born. So the Galactic Federation assumes that there could be 100, there could be 200, there could be 1,000 interstellar species in the galaxy. And this idea can be extrapolated to the universe as well, the Universal Federation, and that these species have met each other and through necessity have formed policies and agreements and treaties between each other for how they will interact. They may have trade treaties They may have weapons treaties. It's a lot like the UN. It's an agreement between sovereign entities saying this is how we will interact with each other. And this is what happens naturally in groups of individuals. Government emerges for the need to coordinate, right? So, if you believe in the Galactic Federation, you might ask, well, why don't we see any evidence of the Galactic Federation? Well, I say because they're far, far, far beyond us. They're so beyond us, they're not interested in us. It's like scientists, some of the greatest scientists say, they will view us as an ant. Michio Kaku says, if you're walking along and you see a squirrel on the ground, do you bend down and try and have an intelligent conversation with the squirrel? You might look at it for a little bit, you might think it's interesting, you might say hello, but you're not going to suddenly stop your whole life and devote all your energy to engaging in diplomatic conversation with this squirrel. It's beneath you. Now, it's not a thing about superiority. I'm not trying to say that they're superior to us or that they would view themselves as superior to us, but their knowledge and their intelligence, and potentially they have even evolved bigger brains and more intelligence past us. They're so beyond us. They're not interested in coming down and engaging with us. And there are so many species in the galaxy, so I assume, because this is my assumption, that there are many species in the galaxy, that they're not going to take the time to go around and colonize the whole galaxy. And the Fermi paradox sort of says, well, if they're out there, why haven't they colonized the whole galaxy? Well, that assumes that they are colonizers. And there's another thing that you can argue as well about colonization. Scientists have said, as societies progress, if they're not going to destroy themselves, they have to learn to be peaceful. They have to learn to be more diplomatic. So if one assumes that a species is 1 million years older than us, they may be a very malevolent, peaceful species with no desire whatsoever to colonize anyone. They may be very loving, warm and compassionate because they've evolved that sort of advanced culture that sees that war and conflict and colonization is inappropriate, so they don't do that. They're not colonizers, right? So what I think will happen if the Galactic Federation is out there, if there is this union of interstellar species, is we will meet them once we go out past our star system. See, we're not there yet. We're not on their level, so they're not engaging with us. They're not interested. Sometimes they observe us. Sometimes they send scientific probes down to have a look at us and to monitor how we're going. This is if you buy into UFO conspiracies. And they watch us and they study us, but that's all they're doing. They're only making notes. They're only recording our history. They're only interested and curious to watch us evolve our civilization. So when we go out past our star system and start rocking up at other people's star systems, this is when it becomes an issue for the Galactic Federation. When we rock up at the next star system and we say, oh, hey, we're here, and we start poking around and we want to go and set up outposts on planets, this is when it becomes an issue for the Galactic Federation, because then we're a threat. We're encroaching into their territory, because absolutely they are the masters of the galaxy, and amongst their collective of planets, they have established rules and laws, and they have established policies about how things should be done in the galaxy with interstellar species. So the thing to understand, if they're out there and the Galactic Federation exists, when we get out and we start going past our star system and we start entering into other star systems, we will inevitably come across them, and they will, and at that stage they will engage us, and we will be forced to engage them. Then negotiations will begin, and believe me, they will expect us to assimilate to their rules, because they have had years, millions of years more experience with how to navigate the universe and how to live in the universe than us. So they will absolutely consider it their dominion, and we are stepping into their domain, and we will be expected to assimilate to their laws and to their rules, and they will respect our sovereignty, and they will give us room to negotiate. But really, there won't be any question about it. It'll be their way or the highway, because they are the masters of the universe. So if you believe they're out there, there's no reason they would engage with us until we step into their territory. They view us as a curiosity, and we are one of hundreds of thousands of species in the galaxy who they monitor and observe, and they keep records of our history, and they monitor us, and they have been keeping records of our history for thousands of years, but they're not going to interact with us until we step into their territory. When we step into their territory, which is, based on our technology, unless we have some giant breakthrough, still many hundreds of years away before we step into their territory. But when we step into their territory, there will be diplomacy and there will be politics, because politics emerges naturally. So we will have to engage with them, and they will come to us and they will say, look, this is what you're allowed to do and this is what you're not allowed to do. And we'll have little option but to obey their rules, because we'll then be entering into the broader galactic community and the universal community. So if you believe that there are interstellar species out there and they have government between each other, they have agreements and trade treaties and weapons treaties and peace treaties and stuff between each other, then you believe that there is a whole community, a cosmic community out there in the galaxy. And, a lot of people, humans, because we're limited to this earth, we're very limited to our politics. We should realise there's the potential that there's a whole other community out there waiting for us, and that when we get to that level of civilization that we can go out there, we then begin to enter into the galactic cosmic community, and then the whole game changes. So I like to think there is something like the Galactic Federation. It all depends on whether it is possible to be interstellar. I read an article in a reputable science magazine about 6 months ago that speculated based on probability analysis. They did a probability analysis and they speculated that there was an age in the galaxy where there was a peak of civilizations, and that this period was like 1 billion years ago. The article said it was like 1 billion years ago there was a peak of civilizations in the galaxy, and they assessed that based on probability calculations. So if any of those species still exist and have gone on to be interstellar, they could potentially be millions of years older than us. So, this is the idea of the Galactic Federation, and there are many people who like this idea of the Galactic Federation. It excites me, but really the key is it at all scientifically possible for any species to be interstellar, or is it too difficult to travel the vast distances of space safely and in a reasonable time frame? Is it too difficult to spread out throughout the universe? So, you tell me when you see me in the street whether you think my idea of the Galactic Federation is smart or ridiculous and silly.